Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We're with Liberty Lass, our level 40 brute, who needs about a million and a quarter XP to get to level 41, and we're doing missions, not a story arc yet, for Indigo, who's asking us to get a shipment, to destroy a shipment for her. And we're mostly facing Knives of Artemis and Malta, but we've also fought some Cray, I think, for her, and she kind of gives you missions doing variety of things. The reason I'm actually supposed to be getting ready for my Deadlands game, but I've got a couple hours, so I thought I would do a half hour, 45 minutes or so of City of Heroes. Hopefully not longer than that, because I do have to get ready for that game. But I've seen a comment from ODX, and I said I feel a rant coming on, and I do want to talk about it. So let's do a little bit of background if you haven't been watching the last few episodes, or maybe if you have but you've forgotten what we were talking about. At one point I was talking about fiction versus mechanics, and then I was talking about using the fiction instead of the mechanics to sort of power game. And ODX just told a story about how in a game that they play, there may have been circumstances where the role play led to some mechanical benefit that maybe wasn't technically on their character sheet. I mean, that's all fine. And that I answered it, and we were going back and forth, and in part of the conversation, ODX said, well, the real problem is when you use I'm sorry, got morning voice because it's early in the morning. When you use this fiction first to do something very specific. And so I want to actually address that specific thing, because that's where one of these moments where the light bulb went off and I said, this is it. This is the unifying thing. Who's the heck is shooting me? Oh, there's somebody up there. And that's a bug. He should not be up there. It's not supposed to spawn up there, actually. So here's the unifying thing that ties it all together. It ties together why I often don't like the rule of cool. Why I don't particularly like it when somebody is role-playing stuff that it doesn't say on their character sheet. It's not just the act of doing that. It's that many of these things occur in a very particular context that I don't like. And that context, to use ODX's term, is spotlight hogging. I don't like it when people hog the spotlight. And as I thought about it, I thought, every circumstance that I can think of that where I've encountered somebody doing the rule of cool, I hear a glowy, somebody doing the rule of cool in my game groups. And in nearly every circumstance that I can recall when a story about the rule of cool was told to me for other game groups, in nearly every circumstance I can remember, what's really going on is one character is doing the quote-unquote rule of cool thing, and they're basically hogging the spotlight. And so the reason I think the real reason that I don't like the rule of cool is that it is often a vehicle for somebody to hog the spotlight. And as I've said before, in role-playing games, it's supposed to be cooperative. You're supposed to be telling the story together. Nobody's supposed to be in the spotlight. The GM's not supposed to be in the spotlight, and neither are the players. I've told about the Bad Rob, who's a terrible GM. Why was he a terrible GM? Because he hogged the spotlight as a game master. He made it all about his own characters. He made them the star of the show, and he used them to, as the GM, hog the spotlight. If you think about the story that I told where the one guy was telling to his game group a story of like an AD&D moment where they encountered a wyvern, and his character only had like create food and water, and he created water inside the mouth of the wyvern. The wyvern's head blew up and died in one shot, right? The guy who was telling that story was a guy that, a friend of mine told me that he heard that story, right? And he then called him on it and said that's not legal in the rules of AD&D, right? And he was asked to leave the game group because he doesn't like the rule of cool, and he was calling out this guy, right? But the person who was telling the story that he had done it, right, was someone that this friend of mine who told me the story called Bard Boy, right? So Bard Boy is the one who told him the story. Why do you call him Bard Boy? Because he always played these bards, and he was always trying to do rule of cool stuff with his bard in the game sessions. And so this friend of mine would come out of the game session and be like, "Oh, Bard Boy did this again," and and it's always stuff that was designed to bring the spotlight to himself, right? To make it about himself, right? And if we go back to like one of my first rants with Quintessence last year, I was talking about the rule of cool and why I don't like it, and I said, for example, that oftentimes what happens is if you do rule of cool, then the player who comes up with the cool thing gets the the bonuses, and the other players who can't think of something cool or entertaining don't. But it's also the person who's there's a sapper, so we want to be careful. Let's put this on preemptively and this. So yeah, the guy who's doing rule of cool is basically it's not just that they're trying to cheat. Why are they cheating? To get the spotlight. They're hogging the spotlight. And that is not something you're supposed to do in a role-playing game, right? It's not cooperative to hog the spotlight. What do I say over and over again? It's not about you. It's not about your character. I've said things like, nobody cares about your character's background. Well, what is that really about? Well, it's about the fact that usually when somebody's trying to do all this roleplay about their background, they're in the process of hogging the spotlight. Okay? And spotlight hogging is probably one of the worst things that you can do in a role-playing game, because it's boring the other players, it's ruining the experience for the other players, and it's incredibly selfish. Right? And so that's why I don't like a lot of this stuff, right? When the guy who used to try to make presence attacks with his 10 presence and wanted to get all these bonus dice, same guy that Bad Rob, right? Same guy that Spotlight hogged as a GM, he was trying to Spotlight hog as a player. My character doesn't have the mechanics to be the star of the show, so I'm going to try to roleplay something that makes me the star of the show. Right? He wanted to hog the spotlight. That's why he was a bad player, right? Everything he did that annoyed me, everything he did boils down to he was trying to hog the spotlight. I never really thought about it that way, right? I would have told you he was selfish. I would have told you he was, trying to make it all about him. But yeah, the right way to summarize it is he was a spotlight hog. And you shouldn't be a spotlight hog. And I think that's why I don't like the rule of cool, right? It's not that I oppose the idea of something cool happening that's not technically in the rules. We do that all the time in my Savage Worlds game, but it's usually done as a group thing, right? That is to say, the group of players maybe comes up with something. It's not just, can we do this as a group? It's not, can I do this and basically turn the entire moment to being about me? Right? So let me give you a great example of something that I would call, I don't know if other people would call this, but I would call the rule of cool. Right? So we're playing, in addition to my Deadlands game, we play in a play-by-post in Harn. And one of the player characters is a knight of Larani, who is the Lady of Paladins. And so his character is a paladin of the Lady of Paladins. Not everybody who follows her has to be one, but a lot of them are. And one of the other characters decided to change how she was dressed and was wearing something different, and turned to the knight and said, I feel like a squire, and then said, is this how the squires are dressed, or do they wear like mail and carry swords? And so the player then asked me in the out of character channel, gee, I don't know, what do the squires wear? So I went to the book on the Order of the Lady of Paladins that was published by the Harn guys, and I looked it up. It doesn't say what they wear. Okay? So here's my rule of cool moment. I wrote back to him and said, well, you're the one playing the order, the member of the order. You make it up. Right? There's no particular reason why my image of what a squire would be like is better than his. It doesn't say in the source material. You make it up. Make up something cool. That's, to me, a really good rule of cool moment, right? Because it's letting the player do something cool. It's letting the player create something in the world, right? I'm letting him basically make up a part of the lore that doesn't exist, right? Since it doesn't exist and it's about his character, you make up that lore, not me. But it's not putting his character in the spotlight. He's just making up lore about what the squires look like. His character's not a squire, right? And so the idea is that, and here is our Melvin and the Mysterious Malta group. So now we're going to learn about the Malta group. Rule of cool is great when it's a collaborative moment. It's not so great when somebody is stealing the spotlight and hogging it. And so I think probably the main reason why I don't tend to like such things as the rule of cool, right, and doing fiction first to the point where you're ignoring or even dramatically violating the mechanics, is because almost every time I see it, guys, almost every, because I thought about this when ODX wrote Spotlight Hogging, and I said, and I realized that's why I don't like rule of cool. And by the way, since we're at Portal Corp, I want to point out there is a day job in here, so I will be getting that one hopefully soon. I asked folks to tell me what the day jobs are. Somebody put the whole list up. Thanks very much for that. Can't remember who put the whole list up, but thank you for that. I do know that there's a wiki, and I've gone there and looked. That's how I found a couple of them. But I was just too lazy to go look. So thanks for putting it up in the comments. That gives me a good, easy place to get the reference. So, in any case, back to the rule of cool thing. As I was thinking about what ODX said, I said, oh, that's... I was thinking about the rule of cool, and I said, that's why I don't like the rule of cool, because it's used as a mechanism to spotlight hog. And then I started thinking about this. I actually edited the comment, said I feel a rant coming out because I was eating breakfast. And as I was thinking about this, I said, thinking back to all the times when people tried to roleplay stuff that isn't part of their character, right? And I called it power gaming and cheating, right? And thinking back to all the times that I saw somebody do something that was way outside the rules, and they're, oh, rule of cool, my friend, rule of cool, that's great, that makes it fun. And I'm like, that is not fun. I don't like that. Why don't I like it? Why have I always objected to it? Why have I always had an issue with it? It's because every time, every single circumstance of this sort of thing that I can think of that I experienced as a player or a game master when I was trying to stop it, every time it was somebody trying to hog the spotlight. It was always certain players. There were 2 or 3 players who used to do this, right? And they always were trying to hog the spotlight, and they just happened with them over and over again. But it wasn't, the other players never did it. And you think, why? Because they don't hog the spotlight. I talk about how great my group is. They're very different players from each other in a lot of ways. But one of the reasons I like the group that I play with, and I think that we've been together so long, is that nobody in the group is a spotlight hog. There isn't anyone. Nobody does that. We don't have that person in the group. We always think about like the problem players, and we talk about like specific symptoms of the problem, right? Whether they're a power gamer or a min-maxer or whatever. And I think these are symptoms. And the real problem with almost all of these people is they're hogging the spotlight. And they're using either the game mechanics or the rule of cool or whatever it happens to be. Right? What is the power gamer really doing? They're trying to make their character more powerful than they should be. Well, why? Because it helps them hog the spotlight. right? I'm not talking about somebody who's just trying to be an efficient min-maxer. We had that with the good Rob. He just wanted his character to be efficient, but he wasn't spotlight hogging. And it's one of the reasons why, and I think even one of my friends in the group asked, why is it that we despise the bad Rob who's trying to power game and min-max and is bad at it, right? Like, he tries to do it and he's terrible at it, so he doesn't succeed. And yet he annoys us. And the good Rob, we adore this guy, and yet he's min-maxing and he's good at it. Why? Well, because he wasn't min-maxing his character for the purpose of the spotlight, right? The guy went into math and economics, and he just likes to be efficient with things. So now we have to find Melvin Langley here. He just likes to be efficient and effective. And if he's efficient and effective, like, he doesn't need to hog the spotlight. My best friend has gotten this way. He really likes to have an efficient, effective character. He doesn't like a character that has abilities that are useless just because it's boring to do that, right? But he doesn't hog the spotlight. My group is very collaborative, right? They always are passing the torch back and forth of who's got the lead in a particular scene. And they always try not to step on each other's toes. And if somebody notices that one of the players hasn't been active, they'll even call that person out. Well, what do you think? Right? And so that is why I like this group so much, and I've been running for so long, and I keep, enjoying GMing for them, is because I don't have to step in as a GM and stop them from doing things like hogging the spotlight. I just simply do not have to step in and do that. So one of the reasons I put hasten is we're being slowed. Now it doesn't affect your running speed, but it does affect if there's any other minus recharge going on, and I don't know whether they are, but we just put the hasten on to counteract it in case. Notice, by the way, the hasten glows blue in this version. I did that when I changed the costume. One of the other things I've started doing with the knives, because I'd forgotten about it, is when one of them, usually one of the three in the spawn, turns on stealth, and they just become so impossible to hit, I just ignore them and attack the other two first. And usually by the time I'm done with that, they've come out of stealth. Who just shot me? So yeah, I mean, I had never really thought about that, sort of the unifying principle behind all of the things that I ran about and talk about. And I think the unifying principle of all the stuff I don't like is that the stuff I don't like is about hogging the spotlight. Right? And I don't like it when players do that. I don't like it as a GM because it's unfair to the other players, and when I'm a player, I really don't like it. So yeah, there you go. That is a single thing that kind of unifies all of my rants that I've ever made, I think, about like role-playing games and player behavior and all the rest of that. I think that, yeah, it's really all about spotlight hogging. Okay, this one's going to be really hard to hit, so we'll go ahead and see if we can stun her. We did. That's going to help. Right? The nice thing about the stunning is if it hits, if it works, they can't engage their powers. So yeah, thanks for the comment, ODX, because that, like, the chain of discussion led to the comment about spotlight hogging, and it just made the light bulb go off, and like, oh, that's why I don't like the rule of cool. There's nothing wrong with the coolness itself. It's that every time I've ever seen it, it's been used in the context of trying to hog the spotlight. The reason the player is asking to be allowed to do the thing they're not supposed to be allowed to do in the rules is because they're hogging the spotlight. And this is really important, one of the reasons the rules don't allow it is often because the developers know if we allow this, then the person with this thing will hog the spotlight. Right? And the developers of a game know that it's bad to have things that allow an individual player to hog the spotlight from the other players. And so they try to balance a game so that you can't spotlight hog. Right? And so then the players try to get around it, the spotlight hoggers try to get around it with justifications. And one of the justifications is, oh, it's the rule of cool. Right? But what's really going on is the rule of cool is helping me hog the spotlight, so I want to use it. Right? So, as a player, you want to be a good player? We talked about that in one of my, what was it? The Power Wash simulators when we were doing the golf course, I think. I can't remember how I can't imagine how I remember that, but yeah, I was talking about what makes someone a good role-playing game player, not a good role player, right? This is not about role-playing, right? Like the ability to play a role, to act like you're a character. That's not what we're talking about. What makes you a good member of a role-playing group? And I said it's being selfless and everything. Well, the other way to say that is you're not hogging the spotlight. Right? You want to be a good player, somebody that everybody wants on your group. It's not about whether you can inhabit your character. That's great. But whether you inhabit them or not, people are going to want to play with you, aren't going to want to play with you if you hog the spotlight, and they will want to play with you if you are generous with that spotlight. Share it. That doesn't mean you don't get to have a character moment. Of course you do, right? Sometimes you do have a little bit of a spotlight for a session or an adventure that the GM planned, right? But you shouldn't be actively trying to hog the spotlight. Okay, let's see. We have 2 bosses here, so we're going to need everything. It's taking me so long just to engage the defenses that they're just pounding on me. One of the things I have found with this combo of power sets is a lot of the stuff that you're doing, the powers, but also some of the defenses, there's some very long animation times. Right, like that power where you go up and down. And there've been several times I've noticed rewatching videos where I have like tried to click on stuff, it doesn't engage because I'm animating, and then I've already moved on to clicking on the next thing, and so then the inspiration doesn't trigger or whatever, and you can kind of die from that. And it always makes me think about the players used to complain about all those long animation powers that like a couple of the power sets like martial arts used to have. These guys, the alphas, the paradox alphas and sigmas and betas and stuff, those guys are they're tough. They are very accurate. Solo, they can't really do anything to you, but when they're shooting at you while you're fighting with other people, they can be pretty brutal. Now, I don't know where Melvin Langley is. I assume he's up here. Or maybe up on the other side. Doesn't look like it. I don't know where he is. That strength of will saved us. I don't think we would have survived that 2-boss fight if I hadn't hit that in time. Oh, maybe no, he's not down this way. Maybe he's behind one of these doors? Nope, just more knives. I don't know where he went. So yeah, again, thanks to ODX for that comment, because it just made me realize all the stuff that I sort of just instinctively don't like, and sometimes I can't even put my finger on why I don't like it, it's pretty much all about spotlight hogging. so much missing with these guys because they're martial artists, right? They're dexterous. So they're hard to hit. They have a lot of defense. And they hit you constantly because they're debuffing you. Alright, so I missed something. Oh, there's another hallway over here. Okay, we gotta go all the way back to the beginning. So I wouldn't have even had to go into that room, I guess, if I had gone the other way and found Melvin Langley that way. There's no way to know, of course, where they're spawning a character. Might be a hallway here, too. No. Okay, so it's just this way. Let's zoom the map in a little bit. Okay, so he's not over there. I don't think we have to defeat everybody, so we'll just leave those couple over where they are. Don't need to get them. I do need to get this mission finished because it's time for me to really get ready for the Deadlands game. So yeah, guys, you can go back and if you watch my other rants, what you'll probably see is the thing I'm complaining about is really rooted in the fact that it's letting somebody hog the spotlight. Even stuff like, and I will say my group is a little guilty of this, Find Familiar, which is a spell I detest. Why do I detest it? Well, the reason is that when the wizard summons a familiar and is scouting the hallway with a familiar for 20 minutes, they're basically hogging the spotlight for that 20 minutes. And nobody else can really contribute. So where is Langley? Is he in the other room here? No. So where the heck is he? Am I gonna find out that he's not here? I mean, I've been everywhere, right? Unless I missed him somewhere. I would have thought he would have been in that bigger room. How did I switch targets? I did not intend to do that. Well, so mission complete. So I guess he wasn't in here. We were unable to find him. Yep. If you see over here in the chat. Not getting a lot of enhancement drops the last couple of missions I've done. And to do full missions against red and purple cons and you only get one enhancement drop. I've gotten recipes. Anything interesting in the recipes? God, I have all these things that are like potentially useful. But I don't have a full set and I don't know if I'm going to need them. I think like I should just get rid of the healing ones. I'm not going to need those. I'm going to have to clean that up. I'll do that off screen. And let's take a look. Our merits, we're at 261. So we need about 339 until we'll have enough for our next set of enhancements. Notice we have a bunch of enhancement converters now. I don't know if those sell. I should see if those sell on the auction house because I don't really use them. I'm sure there's a way to min-max using them, but yeah, I don't really care. This character's doing just fine as she is, so I'm pretty happy with her. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and yeah, let me know if the spotlight hogging bothers you too, because it definitely bothers me. We're going to go to Peregrine Island, and I'll stop off at the Portal Corp so we can start working on that. Oh, and also the Midnighter Squad. I haven't waited there either, so I'm going to have to do that too at some point. But I'm going to just start with Portal Corp. We'll do that off screen. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.